Ladies and gentlemen, the yards per reception rule. We do this video every single year, and it's basically a cheat code when you're talking about drafting running backs that have third-round draft capital or lower.
It's our favorite.
If you want to know who to draft in this year's rookie class from a running back perspective, it's not exactly apple to apples that simple, but it is extremely indicative of these players who can go on to be top 36 running backs or have top 36 running back seasons and what they all have in common. We're going to dive into the data. I'm going to show you why this one simple rule is so dang predictive and then how we can use it to draft in our rookie draft. So again, you want a rookie draft cheat code? Here's a video for you. Drop a like if you enjoy this video. We've done it for 3 years now, I think, and make sure you're subscribed as well. We love this video, ladies and gentlemen. This year we made it even better because you'll remember last year, basically what we've done every year is we've set our bar anywhere from 8 to 8.3 yards per reception. What we're looking at is the yards per reception metric for each of the prospects coming in this rookie class. So for example, this coming year, we took all of the prospects and we pulled all their yards per receptions, right? And the reason that we pulled that is because when you are looking at top 36 from a points per game perspective, running backs in fantasy football, you will notice that now for the last couple of years, a large percentage of the top 36 have had a yards per reception above our threshold of 8.24. So you look at starting in 2021, 31 of them had that yards per reception of 8.24 or higher. In 2022, that number was still 31, 33 in 23, 32 in 2024. We now have 2025. It's 30. It's the lowest mark of that we've had, but you'll notice in the data with the yards per route run, we really should have put like a touches minimum on this because number one, two important things with this year, again, being the lowest number of guys that actually met that threshold out of the top 36, 30 of 36, still pretty good, but the lowest we've seen. What happened? All of these guys are 27 or lower. This little section right here, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, Quinshon Judkins, 3 repeat offenders, by the way. Phil Maffa should not count. He had 1 touchdown. Like we're not, he realistically doesn't even count. And then Woody Marks is 36th. And so again, you're looking at the top 26 running backs this year in fantasy football. All of them had a college yards per reception above that 8.24 magic number, and that's the important
And that's never happened. We've never seen the top 26.
This is although it's the lowest total number, it's the longest streak until you get to a guy where he didn't average more than 8.24 yards per reception in college.
Yeah, so and again, if you're going to complain about it being top 36 and being like, well, that's every relevant running back in fantasy, of course they're all going to be good.
That makes our point even more.
Look at the top 12. If you look at top 12 point per game finishers, 97% across all 5 seasons.
97% of top 12 running back seasons in the past 5 years have cleared 8.24 yards per reception in college. And again, when you add all of these up, all of the seasons, all of the top 36 seasons in the last 5 years, it's still 87% of all of these top 36 finishing seasons had a yards. That is extremely, that's a very high number, guys.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. That is something that those running backs have in common. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a running back that is a prospect that is averaging 8.24 or higher yards per reception in college, that they are going to be a top 36 running back. Not what this is saying. Those are two different things.
A correlation is not a prediction.
Exactly. And so it's not necessarily predictive where you see, oh, this guy hits the threshold, so he has, he's got this percentage chance. We are going to get into that, but it doesn't mean that percentage chance is 87%. That is just an observation. It's just a trend that we see among top 36 running backs in fantasy football. They all, most of them, 87% of them, and this year, 100% of the top 26 have this in common, that they all meet that 8.24 yards per reception threshold. Now, let's go ahead and look at this more data. We're going to talk about all the data first, how we did the investigation, what the hit rates are. We're going to add in a couple new variables this year for, kind of furthering our argument. And then we're going to talk about this year's class and tell you which running backs you should be drafting. Now, when you're looking at the hit rate per yard per reception band, this is for 2021 and 2025. By the way, the sample size here, there were 100 running backs drafted in between round 1 through 7 from 2021 through 2025. So the sample size here is all 100 running backs, right? Guys who have played at least one season. And so a hit is going to be defined as this. They appeared in a top 36 point per game, in the top 36 points per game in any NFL season 21 through 25. So let's look at how the hit rates change based on what range of yards per reception you fall in. I'll let you go ahead and start talking about this chart here a little bit.
Yeah, so when you're looking at under 8.24 yards per reception, which is that threshold that we're looking at, you're looking at 6 total hits of the 33 that we've seen in that range. It's about 18.2%. And then this is really the sweet spot, and this is why we see that baseline of being 8.24. When you look at these ranges, these are just ranges, 8.24 to 10 yards per reception. You've got 8 of your 27 total guys that have been drafted from rounds 1 to 7 over the last what, 4 years,
Yeah.
5 years,
Yeah.
29.6%, which is 63% above the baseline, which would be established by the guys who are under 8.24. From 10 to 12 yards per reception, we're looking at a 44.8% hit rate. That's 13 to 29. And then when you're getting up here to like 12 and above, these are the guys that are outliers in terms of like, wow, that's some of the best efficiency we see in the air for these receiving backs. 4 out of 10 for the 12 to 15 range. It's 40%. And then only one guy at 15 plus yards per reception, and he of course hit. So a single data point, that one you can say is a little bit insufficient, but again, it's above that 12 yards per reception range. It's well above the threshold that we're looking at. So we're still going to consider that one, even though it's such a rarity.
Yeah, and it's actually relevant this year because you have Eli Heidenreich, who I think is at 18 this year, and he's going to be drafted.
That's the highest we've ever seen.
And we don't have enough sample size. He's such an outlier. We don't have enough sample size to definitively say that he has a higher likelihood of being a top 36 running back in fantasy. But basically,
especially when he could be a slot receiver.
Exactly. And essentially played receiver as well. But basically what this chart tells us is this. The baseline being 18.2% hit rate. When you jump to our threshold, that's going to go up by 63%. It's a 63% increase. And I know the difference between 29 and 18 is 11. That's not how you do the math there. It is a 63% chance higher likelihood to hit there. 44.8% chance hit rate when you get above. Again, that's 2.5 times the baseline. 2.5 times. So basically what you do is when you're talking about having a top 36 running back season is you go from having an 18% hit rate. So again, about roughly 1 in 5 chance, right? For these guys to have a top 36 season. When you get up into our favorite thresholds here, like really 10 to 15 is kind of the sweet spot. You get to 40%. Again, essentially double your chances there, which is insane. Like that is insane to think about, that you can give yourself that much of an advantage by just targeting these guys in this range. And so again, the 10 to 12 band is the cleanest signal in the data. 13 out of 29 of the prospects hit there. That's a zone where the receiving ability is validated without being inflated by a scheme as well in college. And so that's important to notice. Now, again, I told you we were going to add some things this year, and we did. Let's look at some signals that we stacked together this year. And let's talk about something, because I really wanted to know when I was doing the data this year, I was like, is there something among the outliers that we can point to that's like, okay, if they have this, but they don't have the yards per reception, these are the guys. Because again, our outliers are pretty much as stated. Zach Charbonnet, Isaiah Pacheco, Kenneth Walker, Quinshon Judkins. Who else did I miss? There's one more in there too that I can't remember.
Maffa.
I didn't count him. Woody Marks and Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving's the other big one. Is there any other statistic that we can look at that will say, hey, if they don't meet the yards per reception threshold, then if they meet this, they have a better chance at hitting? And actually, the data was pretty interesting in terms of what it returned here. So we started stacking some signals here, and we started by adding in the PFF elusive rating. And what we noticed is when you stack elusive rating and you put that over 100, which is again a PFF metric, and you also add in conference strength, which is basically in the Baker, Ryan measures the strength of the conference. So that way, somebody like Eli Heidenreich at Navy is being penalized for playing in a weaker conference, by the way. Somebody who's playing in the Big Ten is being rewarded for that. This materially improves the outcome of all of these hit rates. And then you can see some of these different combinations here. We'll put the whole chart up, and the filter combination is the one on the left. And then you can see how the hit rate changes as we go through the different combinations here. But you'll notice, again, that under 18, the 8.24 yards per reception here, 18%, right? All drafted running backs is at 32%, right? So then obviously if you set the baseline at all drafted running backs at 32%, you automatically drop when you go to guys below 8.24 yards per reception, right? You go above 8.24 yards per reception. That jumps again to 38%. That's 113% increase over the 18.2%. When you're looking at the yards per reception over 10, that jumps even more, 45%. Over 12, 45.5%, right? We saw this on the previous chart, essentially. I will say that, the over 12 is a small sample size. There's only 11 in that pool. But then you start adding some of the PFF elusive ratings in here, and you find a pretty interesting thing. You start stacking some of these metrics, and you start getting a little bit of a higher hit rate here. They meet the threshold, plus they have the PFF elusive rating over 100. That jumps to 46%. There's 50 people in that pool, and 23 of them had top 36 running back seasons. Again, this is guys 1 through 7, and there are plenty 5th, 6th, 7th round guys that are included in this pool that are being counted. Like when you're sorting it out by draft capital, if you did that, we didn't do that before this video, I'm sure you could dial this in even more than we are. But this is including guys that like don't have a chance at being a top 36 running back because they're drafted in the 6th, 7th round. There's plenty of those guys in here. Again, it jumps way up. And when you do yards per, this is essentially it is a coin flip on whether or not they end up as a top 36 running back. When you're looking at this bucket here, their yards per reception over 10 and their elusive rating over 100, 15 of 29 of them. So you're over 50% now of these guys in terms of actually trying to be predictive. And again, the predictive metric is not 87%, but this is where you start to get into it. Like, okay, when a prospect has these two things, 51% of the time, they do go on to be top 36 running backs, at least in the last 5 classes. The power conferences kind of jumps down. Obviously, 36% with just the power conference. You go to 10 in the power conference, it's 43%. You jump up and you do all three essentially, and it's 43%. You do all three. Here's the money bucket in our opinion. The yards per reception above 10. The elusive score above 100 and played in a power conference, 13 to 26 of those guys. Again, another 50%. So really, you've got 2 buckets there. You get up to 50%. And it's important to kind of throw in some context here with the draft. I'll let you talk about kind of the round groups. We kind of sorted this out by draft capital as well. And basically what you could see is first and second round guys, this doesn't even matter for them. It's all about the guys that are drafted rounds 3 through 7, which, by the way, there's going to be a ton of those guys this year. The guys who don't have guaranteed opportunity, that's where you start to find it actually have a meaningful difference here in the data as we sort these guys out by the rounds they were drafted in.
Yeah, when you're looking at the guys that go in rounds 1 through 2, again, regardless of yards per reception, regardless of their efficiency there in the air, if these guys are going in the first or second round, they're a highly touted prospect that is getting a lot of investment from the team that's drafting them in that area, again, at a position that is not very valued in the NFL, so it takes a lot for them to be drafted in that range from a talent perspective. You're just looking at the raw numbers. 14 of the 15 are meeting that threshold, meeting that hit rate that we talked about at the top 36. Again, not a high bar, but still that's very, very good. There were only 12 of those 15, which is, again, a large majority of them, actually hit that 8.24 yards per reception threshold, and you're looking at 11 of those 12 in rounds 1 through 2. Meeting that hit rate expectation that we have for them. Then this is where it gets a lot more interesting. When you're looking at guys that go in rounds 3 through 4, yards per reception independent of where they're going, you're looking at about a 29% hit rate. 10 out of 34 guys are doing really anything of relevance in that range, which we should have learned our lesson with guys like Trey Benson and Kendra Miller and with Caleb Johnson last year. But that's besides the point. Yards per reception, 44.4%. It does bump up there, and that's where we did give a guy like Caleb Johnson the break because he did meet that threshold. And your chances do go up again, dang near 15%, or yeah, exactly 15%. When you're looking at the guys in this range that don't meet that yards per reception threshold, rounds 3 to 4 guys that are below 8.24 yards per reception, 2 out of 16. 12.5% compared to 44.4%. Independent of yards per reception for rounds 5 through 7 guys, 15.7%. 18.9% of the guys that actually met the threshold, 7 out of the 37, compared to the total sample of 51 who was drafted in that range. You're seeing a significant jump there. Now, when you're looking at the guys who did not meet that threshold, 7.1%, 1 out of 14 guys who were drafted in rounds 5 through 7 over the last 5 years actually hit the relevant production range for fantasy running backs. That's staggering. This is our hot spot right here, guys.
Yeah.
This is the application to all the metrics that we've been trying to put together here and trying to find all these correlation points with yards per reception, elusiveness, etc. This is it. Rounds 3 and beyond. Rounds 1 through 2, pretty much everyone in that range gets a pass. The 3 guys who didn't meet the yards per reception threshold, who were drafted in rounds 1 through 2 over the last 5 years, have hit. And they've at least maintained, if not increased value. Guys like Kenneth Walker, who some people view as a disappointment so far, who's never been even like a true running back 1, ever from a points per game perspective. I mean, he's a hit.
Yeah.
He's been a hit. He's been more than relevant for 4 straight years. And now look where he's at with Kansas City. He continues to get opportunity after opportunity. This range, rounds 3 and beyond, these metrics are indicative of guys that you do not want to take a shot on. And that's kind of the point here is we want to increase your chances at hitting on a guy who already has a low chance at a low hit rate of being a guy that's going to be relevant in Dynasty, right? A day 3 running back that you're taking a shot on, this guy could be cut by the time that training camp is over. How can we kind of sift this out? How can we get our chances to move from independent of yards per reception from 30% to 45%?
Yeah.
how can we further separate it and say, okay, now looking at the historic chances of a guy who has, very, very poor efficiency in the air, do we really want to take a shot on him? On top of him being a mid to late day 3 pick, it's probably not the best thing to do when you have a 1 in 14 sample size of guys that actually ended up working
100%.
out that didn't do anything. Yeah. So that's kind of the idea here. That's the point here. It's a better, more guided dart throw in a range that already is going to be pretty disgusting because it's not high draft capital investment.
And again, I think it's more about dominating the dart throws in your draft, the second round of your draft, and not the first round. Because again, first and second round running backs are always going to go in the first round of Dynasty rookie draft. Those guys it's hit rate independent there. Like those guys are hitting at a 14 out of 15 rate pretty much no matter what. And obviously for hits for a round 1 to 2 prospect, you're probably defining that a little bit higher than a top 36 running back. But for the case of this,
which by the way, a nice little practical application for drafts in general. This is why day 1 and early day 2 running backs should always be going so early.
100%
in your rookie drafts, because they are by far the safest asset to invest in, much more than wide receivers.
And again, I think if you kind of cinch down on that that metric and take it from top 36 to like top 15, where it should be for those round 1 and 2 running backs, I'm sure the hit rate drops quite a bit. Yeah. Really, again, the purpose of this video was to talk about these round 3 and 4 and round 5 and 7 guys. So the round is 1 and 2 guys. If they're drafted round 1 or 2, for the sake of this argument, you can expect them to be a top 36 running back, and that's really what we're looking at here. And so here, real quick, before we get into the scouting board for this year, a trait comparison that we're going to look at: the hits versus the busts. What's their average elusive rating? 130 versus 116. That's a 12% increase there for the hits. Yards per reception, 10.1 versus 9.1. That's an 11-point increase as well in yards per reception. The conference rank typically doesn't tend to be predictive, and obviously we know the draft round is extremely predictive. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the 2026 class scouting board according to these metrics. I'm going to take this every player that we're going to be scouting here. I'm going to put this whole scouting board and a little cheat sheet up on the site for all of you domain annual mother flockers. Again, if you want access to this, we're going to put all the data up, and you've got the full bakery. If you become a member, of course, we can get you a plan for your Dynasty team, your moves, your league, but you're going to get a ton of stuff with it. You're going to get the Infinite Blueprint, which is, again, an update on your blueprint every single month. So a plan for your Dynasty team and updates, one-on-one access to Nathan and I. You're going to get everything that's included. As a bonus, you're going to get all these trade questions. You're going to get the bakery. You're going to get all this data, our player categories. You get the Discord. You can get in domain leagues, etc. And so, again, we've got a ton of stuff, and it is the best deal in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Plus, you're going to get access to all of this data, plus all the bakery data as well. And so it's flockfantasy.com, again, /domain. Go check that out in the link in the pinned comment if you'd like access to all this data. We're going to be doing more of these videos, and we're going to keep posting all these tools on the site for you guys to use. That's part of, again, being a member, is getting our research and getting all the tools we come up with based on the research. Now, the scouting board. Again, the implied hit rates are drawn from 2021 to 2025 running backs using the top 36 point per game outcomes. And then obviously these rates are, historical frequencies for the filter combination each prospect qualifies for, and not their individual predictions, right? We know that it's not predictive. I can't emphasize that enough. I promise you we know how statistics work. I promise you I know. Promise you. And if you want to have a statistical math debate in the comments, I'm going to let you just do it. Because if you're trying to prove that you know more than us about something, don't worry. We know that a lot of you know a lot more than us about a lot of things. And so we get it. Point taken. You're smart. Cool. Let's go on. Class scout. I mean, it's going to be it. It's going to be it. People like,
we get it every time.
We know that we're not the smartest people of all time. And we know this isn't a perfect science.
We know it's
Trust
not
me,
predictive.
We get it. The 2026 class scouting board. It is. It can be. Let's look at each of these. First of all, I think we should talk about the guys at the top. Let's look at Jeremiyah Love. Doesn't cross the over 10 yards per reception, but he does cross our minimum, 8.24. And he does have that elusive rating over 100 and plays in a power conference. So the implied hit rate, based on the factors we were looking at earlier for the last 5 running back classes, would be about 43%. Now, the thing is, it doesn't really apply to Jeremiyah Love because he's going to be a first-round running back. And again, every time you have a first-round running back like this, they hit. So he's going to hit. Congratulations. Jeremiyah Love is the clear 101 in this year's draft. This data does nothing for him. But I think starting with Coleman and Price here is where you actually start to have the discussion, because these guys could be third-round guys. Do they pass the test if they do fall to the third round, Nathan?
Oh, yeah, they do.
They do.
This made me so happy about Price and Coleman. It made me feel a lot better about them, because honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really know for a fact that both of these guys are going to go in the second round. I don't know if either of them are going to go in the second round. Heck, maybe one of them doesn't even go in the third round and they end up going like early fourth, kind of like Tootin and Scadaboo did last year. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if that were the case. What I do care about is them meeting pretty much every single box that we care about here. When you're talking about meeting that yards per reception threshold, that elusivity score, which is phenomenal, and then both of them playing in a power conference. Notre Dame, okay, technically not, but you know what I mean. 50% for each of them. This is really, really solid, the implied hit percentage there for the range and the company that they are in. When you're talking about guys that you want to take a shot on in this class in the upwards of mid first round, these are the types of guys that you're going to want to take a shot on in this 26 class, or Coleman and Price, if they get respectable enough draft capital. Then it gets a little more interesting the further down we go here. Desmond Reid, obviously, we're going to take with a grain of salt, just like Heidenreich. Heidenreich obviously has not played in a power conference. We love him. He might be a receiver. Desmond Reid is like the next tiniest guy since Deuce Vaughn. So he's probably not going to get a ridiculous amount of draft capital. But again, if you're going to take a guided day 3 dart throw, by all means, take a shot on Desmond Reid or Eli Heidenreich or Terion Stewart, who I think is another really interesting guy to look at here. Down the board, he is in that outlier tier, which is not a great tier, but he is well over that yards per reception threshold, has a good elusivity score, and he's got that power conference plus playing at Virginia Tech with a 43.2% implied hit percentage there. The 3 guys that I want to highlight that are going to get a lot of buzz and a lot of talk and people wanting to move them up boards.
I want to talk about some of them. I want to talk
about
cool. I'll talk about the negative guys.
Cool.
I want to be the negative one here. All right, the negative ones. This is a little bit interesting.
Just let me put the hammer down on it.
I want to talk about at least one of the prospects here. Let's talk about Singleton. Let's talk about Singleton and Kaytron Allen. Now, interestingly enough, the implied hit rate for Nick Singleton is double what it is for Kaytron Allen because
he's the receiving threat.
Because he's the receiving threat, right? And so he actually meets that 8.24 yards per reception threshold that we look at.
Pause. Why are we even focusing on yards per reception for a running back? Why does that matter in the NFL?
We probably should have prefaced with that. Probably should have been right at the beginning of this video. A receiving skill set for a running back is vitally important for every single running back that touches the field. Otherwise, it's going to severely cap their ceiling in fantasy football from a receiving skill set. And
why does it cap their ceiling? When you are dumping
passing downs.
Exactly. When you're dumping the ball off to a running back as an NFL team, you're expecting them to do something with the freaking football. And if they're not getting close to the sticks, if they're not getting you into a short yardage situation, they are not a weapon. They are a warm body getting carries. So that's why we focus so much on this yards per reception metric, is because the NFL does. And that is a fact. Like we have been told by GMs in the NFL who have general manager experience that they look at this stuff.
Yeah.
They look at their receiving metrics specifically and how efficient they are in the air, because if they're not, or they're well below average and they don't have that many athletic traits as it is, they're not going to take a shot on this guy.
No.
There's no reason.
Or they
for
will
them
and they
to.
won't do anything again, because like I mentioned, the receiving upside of a prospect is directly correlated with their fantasy football upside as well. Because if you have, and the problem is, we look at Quinshon Judkins, we say, okay, he was an outlier. He didn't hit this threshold, but he technically hit. I will say, it's not like it didn't tell us anything about Quinshon Judkins, because why is his value ceiling so capped right now in fantasy football?
Because he doesn't have receiving.
He has no receiving upside. Is there anything that could have told us that he didn't? Oh, interesting.
So, which we mentioned last year.
We did mention it
but
last year.
you know what we did say?
Well, and again,
he's going to get second round draft capital.
He got second round draft capital, and it didn't matter. And that was the whole point. But let's talk about the Penn State guys here. Nick Singleton, again, receiving back. Look, personally, I think Kaytron's the better runner. Kaytron has the elusive score that Nick Singleton doesn't. But again, it's the yards per reception that's more, in my opinion, indicative of a running back that could have fantasy success. Look, both these guys I don't think are going to. But
this
Nick
is case
Singleton,
in
at
point
least,
why I don't like either of them.
Nick Singleton does at least fall into that receiving category, and I think those guys are much more likely to have a role. I think those guys are much more likely to have a role.
Yeah, they are.
And so I had to pick one between them. It's going to be Singleton, and again, the implied hit rate is double for him, from 36 to 18%. Now going to Kaytron Allen, doesn't hit the. He does have the elusive score, does not hit any of the other three, okay? So 18.2% implied hit rate. This is one of those guys where, again, if you're betting on Kaytron Allen in the third round, it might be the second round of your rookie drafts this year, you are not probably taking a very safe bet there. And so with Allen, I'm definitely going to be out on him because, again, he doesn't have the receiving skill set to make it on the field in the NFL. Now, there are two guys in this video that this is where you squash narratives. And these are honestly the two biggest takeaways from this video, in my opinion, is this can tell you really who not to target. And Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton was like, yeah, we weren't targeting them anyways. Okay, well, let's talk about Mike Washington, combine riser, right? Has to be the belle of the ball. Mike Washington, second round draft capital now. He's coming for it. And if he does get second round draft capital, he's technically going to be exempt from this. But the thing is, what if he gets third round draft capital? Well, looky here. Not only does he not have the yards per reception metric that we want to look at, he has 6.67 yards per reception in college. So he does not hit that 8.24. He also does not have the PFF elusiveness score. So he falls into the bottom of the predictive metric hit rates. Again, 18.2% for him as well. History tells us, again, when we're looking at guys drafted in rounds 3 through 4 here, guys who don't have that hit rate, how many of those 16 guys drafted in the last 5 years in round 3 and 4 without meeting that threshold, how many of them had a top 36 season? 2 of them out of 16. That's a 12.5% hit rate.
2.
You are betting, honestly, you could put Mike Washington, assuming he goes in the 3rd round, 4th round, you could put his hit rate at 12.5% because for all intents and purposes, that's what the hit rate has been for guys who have gone in that range that have not met the threshold. Mike Washington, I get that he's athletic. I get that he had a good combine. I get that he's got some solid tape, although I do think he has questions on his tape. We are not going to be drafting a lot of Mike Washington this year because, again, statistically, he is a lot more unlikely to be a top 36 running back than some of the other guys on this list.
And this is my hammered down statement for you guys, for these players that Avery just mentioned. Mike Washington, Emmett Johnson, Kaytron Allen.
I didn't mention spoilers.
Oh, my bad. If these 3 guys go 5th round or later, you could not bribe me with $1 million to take a shot on one of these guys. 1 in 14. 1 of 14 of guys that have these metrics that do not meet these thresholds that are drafted in that range actually end up hitting. It is the worst dynasty investment in a rookie draft, period.
And here's the problem. Here is the problem that we have been trying to get across to people, because it kind of ties in together right here. You're going to everything's going to culminate right here for Domain.
Just click.
Ready?
Together. Yeah.
Running backs in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round are better investments than wide receivers. Mm-hmm. And these running backs that are going to be going in the 2nd round of Dynasty rookie drafts this year are legitimately horrendous investments. And so what does that tell you about the wide receivers there? And what does that tell you about 2nd round picks? And what does that tell you about 2026? It all ties together, guys. It does. In a normal class, you'd have a lot of guys you could draft in the 2nd round that would check a lot of these boxes. Yeah. Not this year. Not this year.
They will be going early mid.
Emmett Johnson from Nebraska is the same as Mike Washington. He hits none of them. And I'm not going to bend my rules to get Emmett Johnson in there. I don't think Emmett Johnson's going to hit in the NFL. I don't. I'm just being honest with you.
I wish he did. I wanted to like him.
I did too. I don't like his film, honestly. Like I think again,
it was very underwhelming.
People talk about how elusive he is, but his PFF elusive score did not even crack 100. So what are we really hanging our hat on here for Emmett Johnson? I don't know. Again, you can be a film junkie and do whatever, but like I've watched his film and I've looked at his numbers now, and I'm like, So I won't be doing that. Now, the couple guys in the outlier tier that we're going to cover here. There is one guy down here that does have above a 50, technically the highest implied hit rate on this chart when we're covering these top 10 running backs here. And who is that? It's Eli Heidenreich. Interesting that it's Eli Heidenreich, right? But not only did he average more than 8.24 yards per reception, he averaged more than 10. Heck, he averaged more than 12.
Heck, he averaged 18.
He averaged 18, which is kind of sucky because we don't have a large enough sample size.
Right.
It was only Elijah Mitchell, I think, right?
I think Elijah Mitchell was 16.
Yep.
Yeah. Elijah Mitchell.
He technically did hit.
Elijah Mitchell had some value.
He did, and so
years.
That's not a bad, but it's you don't have enough sample size to make an actual assumption there. The only thing he didn't have going for him, he was very close to being the only guy on this list that checks. He didn't want to play in a power conference. And the other big thing here with Eli Heidenreich is context is important. He played wide receiver, essentially. So, you are essentially plugging a wide receiver. Wide receiver's always going to...
Yeah, he lined up as a running back a lot.
So, I honestly, truthfully don't think this means a whole lot.
He got as many carries as he did targets. So.
I know, but he legitimately played wide receiver, too. So, I don't think this means a whole lot.
And he's tiny.
But it fits my agenda. And you know what that means, guys. Nathan talked about Terion Stewart. Great sleeper pick. Maybe the best sleeper pick that we're talking about right now. It's kind of flying under the radar. Yeah. LeVeon Moss is a better sleeper pick than taking Allen Washington or Emmett Johnson at prices.
Better than we would have thought.
Yeah, for sure. So I've always liked his tape. It's been really hard for me to find any analytics that have supported any of this, but he was
underwhelming this year as well.
Again, he really is. Him and Nick Singleton are the guys that only really hit the yards per reception. And then Dean Connor's on here from Houston. He is in that tier, which is we're not going to touch him. So again, what does this tell you about the class? Well, it tells you a lot of things you already knew. Jeremiyah Love's the GOAT, and it doesn't matter because he's going to go first or second round. If Coleman or Price go second round, congratulations, we're going to draft in the first round of rookie drafts. If they go in the third, they're good picks. We're comfortable picking them there. Outside of that, this year, you have a couple sleepers, 1, 2, maybe 3 sleepers this year. That's it. And I don't want to draft, again, seconds, thirds, fourths off my team. Already, I've been shipping them away. Why? This is why. Because this is a very, very weak running back class. And the data kind of proves it. The proof is in the pudding. And so, what do we take away from this? Again, guys who do not reach that yards per reception threshold. It's not that it's not that guys who do have an 87%, that's not what we're saying at all. But they are inherently more likely to have top 36 running back point per game seasons than those who don't. You add in a couple other metrics and you can really start deciding in your rookie drafts who you should take dart throws on, who you should take flyers on, who you should take shots on, and who you shouldn't. This
isn't some magic random number either, guys. This should be very intuitive. If they're good in the receiving game and they're a good running back, then they're going to do good. And if they're not, or they're really iffy, or they're a one-trick pony, then they're probably going to be a one-trick replaceable pony at the NFL level as well.
If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed as well. Again, it's not a perfect science, but it's using some of the analytics that we have at our fingertips to make educated, more informed guesses. Because at the end of the day, when you're drafting rookies in Dynasty, you are guessing. All of us are technically guessing. The NFL's guessing. Why do you think there are plenty of first-round picks in the NFL that don't hit? A large percentage of them. Why do you think half the first-round
running backs do hit the most though when they go in the first?
And that is true. And so running backs kind of more of a science when you get down into it. And again, I'm sure there are inconsistencies and flaws and whatever, and we're not experts on everything. So there's that. It's fun. I think it's very interesting. It's clearly very telling, and I think it can help you out for your drafts. Again, drop a like. Make sure you're subscribed if you enjoy this video. We love you guys. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching. See you soon.